to me, and some of the people in it knew how to knit. I didn't know how to do anything, but there was a girl in the class who showed me how to do a craft where you do finger knitting, kind of, where you take some yarn, wrap it around your fingers, go over like that, and you can make long chains. So for many years, that was the only thing I knew how to do with yarn. When I was in college, I was in my freshman year, I had to take a mandatory class in speech where people gave speeches about different skills and talents they had. And there was a girl in the class who showed me, showed everyone actually, how to crochet and how to do different stitches. And I tried very hard to watch her very carefully, and I thought maybe I would remember how to do that, but I came back home and couldn't figure out any of it. I went to a store called Woolworth, interestingly enough. Nothing to do with yarn or anything, it was just the name of it, but they did sell yarn and knitting needles and crochet hooks. And I went to the store and I bought yarn that had, wasn't colors I was interested in it. I didn't know that there were all different kinds of yarn back then or anything. And I saw they sold either sets of 2 sticks or 1 short stick. And I thought the 1 short stick looked much more simpler. I thought, I'll get that. I didn't even know the difference between knit and crochet back then. That's how little I knew, and I tried to take books out of the library and figure out how to knit or crochet based on that, not knowing the difference between one and the other, and I couldn't figure it out from 2 dimensions. And I pretty much put it on the side. But throughout the 1990s, it was something I really wanted to do, and I kept signing up for classes offered in different places, like the community college that I was going to, and other community colleges and schools and private institutions about knitting and crocheting, how to learn how to do it. And they all got canceled each time due to low enrollment. Very often I was the only enrollee. During the time I was going to nursing school, I was taking all the prereqs for becoming a nurse to get into the nursing program. And then when I finally got into the nursing program, I went through 1 year of it, 2 semesters. It was very hard on me physically. It was breaking my back. And I thought I can't do this for a career. So after 2 semesters of this, rather than toughing out the last year, I made the really hard choice to drop out. Then I was trying to figure out something else to do with my life. That was the hardest thing to do afterwards, was trying to figure out something else to do. I was looking at the continuing education catalog of the college I was going to see if there was a course I could take in a few weeks to get some kind of job that would have a decent income just to support myself. Nothing really appealed to me in that catalog. In the meantime, other interesting things were happening. I used to go to this flea market that would happen every Sunday, and the main reason why I wanted to go to it was social. I would go there and the same people would be there every Sunday morning, and I would talk to them, the vendors and the customers. But one day I came, this was a few weeks after I dropped out of nursing school, and there was a table there I had never seen before. There were these 3 ladies behind it, and they were selling yarn, and they were knitting. And I asked them, I said, where can I go to learn how to do that? And they said, we own a shop, and we can teach you for free under one condition, which is that you buy our yarn. And I said, okay. I made an appointment and came in and went and I made a point of wearing a commercially made sweater that I had back then with a paisley design. And the reason why I wore it was because I wanted to show them what I wanted to do one day. They said to me, very frankly, pointing out, they said, that's for experienced knitters only. They said, we're not even going to have you make a sweater today. We're going to have you make a scarf. And I was disappointed. I wanted to make sweaters, things I could wear and that other people could see. So anyway, I continued to work on the spec that they got me started on. And I thought this will be something that I'll do for a short period of time and I'll lose interest in it. I met a lady at that shop who told me there was another yarn shop in town, actually closer to where I lived at the time. And she said, this shop, you want to really check it out. And I walked in there one day, and the lady who owned it took an instant liking to me, and she said, you're going to walk out of here today having already started on a sweater. And when I came out that day, she had started me on ribbing. She took a knitting machine and got started on the ribbing of a solid color sweater. No designs on it or anything. She said I wasn't ready for that, but she said, just do the knit stitch. And I didn't know how to do the purl stitch yet. I wouldn't learn it for a month after that. It took me 8 months, but I finished that sweater, solid color. I finished it just in time for the turn of the century. After that, I started another solid color sweater, but by then I learned how to purl, and it took me only 2 months. I made it out of a bulkier yarn, and I had 2 solid color sweaters done. But I thought, I don't want to spend my life just making these solid color sweaters over and over. I want to do something a little more interesting. Around that time, I found that the subscription card inside of Vogue Knitting magazine had a picture of a sweater that looked like a globe. It was called Map of the World. I told the lady of shop number 2 that I had gone to, I want to make that as my next sweater. And she told me the very familiar line that the owner of shop 1 had told me a year earlier. That's for experienced knitters only. I was not willing to take no for an answer to this. I called up Vogue Knitting myself. I said, I'm interested in the pattern for that globe sweater you have on your subscription card. And they said, yes, we do have it. And they sent it to me with a very reasonable price, and I ordered it on the spot over the phone. It took me 5 months to make it. I used different colors than the pattern called for, but here it is. After that, I thought, what do I do next? This was such a complex pattern. Anything else I would do just wouldn't seem as interesting. So I had to think of something new. I thought, now it's time to design my own sweater. And I was driving down the freeway one day when I saw the cloudy sky. There was a lady I was taking home from a doctor's appointment that day, and we were talking about knitting, and we were both looking at the beautiful cloudy sky that day, and it popped in my mind, why don't I make a cloudy sky sweater? Not too long after that, I thought of other elements of nature. So I took some graph paper and tried to draw out a picture of a cloudy sky with other things on it. And as I was about to pick up the yarn and do that, I thought, why do I even need this graph? Why can't I just freehand it as I go along? I took some yarn that I had in my stash that people had given me over time, and I started right here. I was thinking of a waterfall, so top to bottom waterfall, so I used this brown-gray yarn. It's variegated for the sides, and I was alternating between blue, white, and gray to look like a body of water, a waterfall, and I topped it off with a cloudy sky without a pattern, and it worked. Then when I got around to what I intended to be the front, I hadn't even thought of what I would put on it, but then I thought, as I was going on, I'll put a river on it, because what goes into a waterfall? A river. And then as I was getting up to here, I thought, I'll put a bridge with a water wheel. I kept thinking of more things that could be on it. And then, of course, the cloudy sky at the top on the front, too. It took me 2 months, and I had this done. I didn't think of it as the best piece of art or anything, but it showed me this was possible to do. So if someone asks me, how much knitting experience do you need to make this? Because I kept being told that's for experienced knitters only, I have the answer. 17 months. After that, I wanted to do something a little more interesting than that, with more colors, and I thought of more elements of nature. I was still stuck on nature scenes, so I thought of putting trees on it and a body of water and mountains. And as I was getting along here, I thought, why don't I add ducks to it? So it became a duck pond. This was freehand sweater number 2. Now the weather was getting warmer, and I enjoyed wearing the sweaters that I had made, but I was thinking, if I want to wear them all year long, I have to make them short sleeves and out of cotton. But one thing I had always noticed is, in the women's fashion line, there were always short sleeve sweaters that were made for the summer, but there was no such thing for men. Nothing like that ever existed. And I thought, how can I possibly wear a short sleeve sweater as a man? But then I went to a speech from someone, I forgot what the context was, but someone was saying that if you want to get along in this world, you have to dare to be different. Those words stuck in my mind, dare to be different. And then I thought, maybe I'll just go ahead with it. So at first I was thinking of making a bridge of the tower, the sweater of the Tower Bridge in London. This I'll go to later, but I had seen a picture in a magazine of the Tower Bridge in London, and I thought, that would make a great sweater. Why do I only have to do nature scenes? When I first started it, I started with a different kind of yarn. I had lots of trouble with it, and I couldn't finish it. It fell apart. I got up to here, and I ended up giving up on it, but I ended up trying out a different design. So after that, I thought maybe a castle, a simple design, and it took me 3 months to get this done, and I had this sweater done. It became my first short sleeve sweater ever. I made the sleeve like that of a t-shirt, and I got it done just in time for spring weather. A castle, and the first time I wore it was when I took a bus trip for the day with a group of people to New York City. I thought the first time I'll wear it so people won't think of me as strange by wearing it. It'll be in a different city, not in my hometown. But when I wore it in New York City, people kept coming up to me on the street and saying, "That's such a nice sweater, where did you get it?" So at that point, I had the confidence to wear a short sleeve sweater in public. While I was on my way home on that bus trip in New York, I was looking at the New York skyline. The date was May 2001, and I was looking at all the buildings, including the tallest one, the Empire State Building and the Twin Towers. And it gave me an idea, why don't I do a sweater with some of the buildings of New York City? This turns out to be one of the weirdest things that ever happened to me in all my life of knitting. I started that very day on a sweater with the Twin Towers. I got it done in about a month, and I've been wearing it all summer in 2001, this Twin Towers sweater. That was before 9/11 happened. And when 9/11 happened, I was left with a really unusual situation. What do I make out of this? Here the Twin Towers got destroyed, and I already had a Twin Towers sweater, one of the first ones I ever made of a landmark. It was just very hard on me. Still is quite hard on me today. So anyway, moving forward, I continued to make sweaters, and one of the things that was happening is the more I did them, the faster I got. So one day, it was during the Olympics of 2002, I started making a ski sweater because I was watching all the skiers go down. And This yarn, interestingly enough, is called Snowflake. But I wanted to have it done in time for a specific event in which I was going to see people, and I wanted them to see me in my ski sweater. So I thought, I have just 11 days to get this done. So now I was left with a challenge. How fast could I do a sweater? And it took, I stayed up all night. I was working on it the whole time I was watching the Olympics, and then some, and I pulled it off. Got it done in 11 days. It was one of the hardest yarns I ever had to do with, but the fastest I ever did. The next interesting thing that happened was in the summer of 2001, I went to an Orioles game. I was thinking, I wish I had a Camden Yard sweater, but I didn't. And I thought, I'm going to commit to making a Camden Yard sweater by the next baseball season. So I bought the yarn that I thought would be perfect for it in the summer of 2001. I didn't start it until March the next year when the baseball season was about to start. So I started off by doing the front of it. I did the baseball diamond and everything, the red wall and stuff. And when I got around to the back, I ran out of this green yarn. But the two shops in Baltimore I had been going to all this time, they were out of this yarn. And I didn't know where to get it. That was the first time I had to look for other yarn shops. So I looked on Google, which by then was a lot less sophisticated than it is today, and I found a page that listed all the yarn shops in Maryland. Fortunately, I had the label with the color number and everything. I was pulling up all the yarn shops in geographic order and asking, do you have it? And they all kept saying no, 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 until I reached one in Bethesda. And I was living in Owings Mills at that time, a suburb of Baltimore, and so I told the yarn shop in Bethesda, I said, can you please put two on hold, I'll be right over in about an hour. I jumped in the car, drove all the way to Bethesda, just to get a skein of yarn to finish this. And I was thinking as I was driving to Bethesda, I've driven that route many times over the years. This is so silly. Why am I going all this distance just for a skein of yarn? Well, I was so excited to have obtained it that I finished the sweater in just 3 days. In the year 2002, I made lots of sweaters because I was so efficient at making them. But at the end of that year, something really interesting happened, which is that I met the woman who I would eventually marry. And we spent 2003 dating each other and getting ready for our wedding, which would happen at the end of 2003. So after we got married, we went on a honeymoon in Niagara Falls. And on the way home, we stopped at a yarn shop that was owned by someone who's actually a vendor here at this festival. And I bought the yarn to make a Niagara Falls sweater. I thought I brought it with me, but I don't think I did. Sorry about that, but it is on my website if you want to see it. And I eventually made a second Niagara Falls sweater. That's how important Niagara Falls is to us, because it was our honeymoon site. And of course, I continued to make more sweaters over the years. My wife and I continued to travel more places over time. And whenever we would go to a place, I thought, if this is a sweater of wherever, I would have to wear it to that place, or something that looked like that. So when we went to Venice in 2011 for the first time, I wore my Venice sweater there. One of my two Venice sweaters. I didn't think of taking pictures or anything. But within a few years after that, I realized I had a collection of about 10 to 15 pictures of me wearing sweaters in the place or around the object that was depicted on them. I thought, wow, this is an interesting form of art in its own. And I discovered Facebook had knitting groups, so I started posting them in all the different Facebook knitting groups. And I kept discovering more and more of them over the years. And soon, it was getting attention. In early 2017, I woke up one Sunday morning to find lots of Facebook messages and friend requests. I thought, what's going on here? Have I been hacked? And I looked at what the messages were, and people were saying, don't you know that you're in this article and that article? What had happened was I accidentally friended someone on Facebook who had the same name as someone else I was acquainted with at that time. And well, it was not that same person, but it was someone else who took an interest in my sweaters. And he went and wrote an article on a site I had never heard of before called Imgur. The Imgur article pretty quickly went viral, pretty much in my sleep. And then the mass media picked up on it. So by Sunday morning, I was getting all these requests to be interviewed by mass media, something I had never expected to happen before. Like I had the occasional magazine article before, but never anything like that. So I was overwhelmed by that. 1 year earlier, I had made an unusual achievement that I was wondering when I would ever get to that, but it seemed like a milestone. 2016, I had started the year with 91 sweaters. I thought that would be the year of my 100th lifetime sweater. And I was thinking at the time, what do I depict on my 100th sweater? And people were making me all kinds of suggestions. But finally, I got the idea, why not make miniatures of all my sweaters? And I know one person here, and I was wearing the t-shirt of this. So I thought that would be my big breakthrough, was making 100 sweaters, but really it happened several months after that when the mass media picked up on it. And since then I've been getting lots of requests to travel, which I enjoyed very much. Like I got a request in 2018 to come to Boulder, Colorado. I was sitting at the Los Angeles airport on one summer afternoon in 2017 after having done a knitting business trip there, and I found an email that someone sent me. Was from the Boulder Library in Colorado. They said, next year we're doing a big exhibit that we would like you to take part in. They said, we want to put 40 of your sweaters on display for a 2-month period, and we want you to knit 3 sweaters of Boulder area landmarks. And what they explained to me that they wanted to do was that people would borrow the sweaters just like they were books from the library, take them to the landmark, and take their own selfies with them, just like I take selfies with my sweaters in the landmarks. So this is one of them. This is one of Boulder's main landmarks, which is called the Flatiron, which is a mountain range, which is a park. I also did Rocky Mountain National Park, which is not too far away from Boulder, and 2 others. I've also had other interesting experiences happen. One time I had made a sweater of the Hollywood sign, and when I came through the Hollywood sign to take a picture wearing it there, my wife and I got out of the rental car that we had, and then parked right next to us was a tour bus. And a whole bunch of tourists got off the bus, and they asked me, they said, are you the one who knits the sweaters and goes up to the landmarks? And I said, yes, and I said, there's some really good news. You're about to see me do that. And they all got in a group photo with me. I've had a lot of similar experiences like that at other places I've been to when I've gone to take my pictures, unexpectedly. So throughout the years 2017, 18, and 19, I was doing all these interesting trips. 2020, I had a bunch of them planned, and we all know what happened. So since all my travels ground to a halt, I got this new idea in mind. What had happened was my wife and I were going only one place outside the home because we were really afraid of getting COVID, and we still are today. So we were taking walks on trails. We discovered all kinds of local parks, or we went to ones that we had very rarely been to before. And one day we went to a place, it's in the northeast of Baltimore County on the line with Harford County, called Jerusalem Mill. And wherever we went, I would put my pictures on Facebook and said, this is what we did today. And then someone suggested, why don't you make a sweater of Jerusalem Mill? And Jerusalem Mill is not a famous landmark. It's not like the Hollywood sign or anything. It's not like the theme of what I do normally on sweaters. But since I wasn't traveling, I thought, why not? And I went and made a sweater of Jerusalem Mill. And this began a new series of local landmark sweaters that I did in the coming year. So I did Sugarloaf Mountain, which is in Frederick County. I did, this is called the Forest of Hope in Oregon Ridge Park in Hunt Valley. I did Annapolis. I did the Hodgepodge Lodge from the 1970s PBS show at the Howard County Conservancy. I did Lake Elkhorn in Columbia. And this is the one I entered in the state fair very recently. This is Ellicott City. Now I'm back to traveling again like I did before. Most recently, in September, we took our first international trip since the pandemic began, and we went to Canada, and I made a sweater of the Toronto skyline with the CN Tower. So one of the most frequently asked questions I get is, do you sell your sweaters? And regretfully, I have to tell everyone, no. Everyone wants a sweater from me that I've knitted myself, but I don't have the means of mass production. It takes me a month to make one. It's impossible for me to be a human sweater mill. In 2017, a company in Las Vegas, they somehow found me on social media, and they became interested in my sweaters, and they are a company that makes anything you want into a t-shirt or a dress or certain other garments. So we came up with this idea, make my t-shirts into prints that look like my sweaters. So since then, they've made 29 sweaters. They've made into templates that can be made into t-shirts. Like this one is the human anatomy. It looks just like my human anatomy sweater, which is over there. Here is a t-shirt replica of my owl sweater, which as you see, it looks just like my owl sweater. So every once in a while, a new one or two new ones are added. Even the alpaca sweater that I'm wearing right now, it is available as a t-shirt now. And the other interesting thing that happened is, after the pandemic started, people started asking me. A few years earlier, I had made a birthday sweater. So people started asking me to make videos for them, singing happy birthday in my birthday sweater to someone. And they offered to pay me to do it. So I thought this would be an interesting business to do from home. So I started doing that, and then I expanded it to doing shout outs for different holidays and other special occasions. So I'm doing that at full force now too. So between the t-shirts and the sweater shout outs, it's kept me really busy. And I'm planning to do a lot more stuff in the future. So does anyone have any questions?
Did you make a lot more sweaters during COVID, like during quarantine?
That's what many people think, but what many people don't realize is I knit a lot better when I'm with other people, with a group of other people who are knitting. And when COVID started, all the in-person knitting groups I was going to shut down, like everything else did. And because I wasn't with other people, and I was doing Zoom knitting groups, but they weren't really the same thing, I got a lot less knitting than usual done. So right now I'm working on one of the Baltimore Washington Monument, and I'm a little more than halfway through. It has the Wolters Art Gallery on the back, and then after that I have a few other possibilities.
How do you find your yarn?
I get it mostly at local yarn shops. Some of it I get from other places too. I have so much yarn I'm overwhelmed by it.
What challenges did you face when first creating your own original patterns?
Like, actually, there weren't any, because I found it a lot easier than many people think it was. Like, one of the things I do is I use yarns that resemble things in the real world. Like a variegated blue would look like a body of water. So it's like finding the right yarns to look like something. People ask me that all the time, and it's impossible for me to have a number one favorite. So we have a bedroom that has two closets in it. One is larger than the other. So my wife has the larger closet because she has more store-bought clothes. But my sweaters, I don't keep them in the closet. I keep them in cabinets that are the size of big refrigerators. What, sorry? So I use all different fibers. I do most of them these days out of cotton because I get hot recently, but I don't use any fiber.
How many do you have now so far, do you think you made?
So 159 and counting. I'm in the middle of 160.
Have you ever ripped the sweater while finishing it?
Sometimes I've gone back when I've been unhappy with it and I want to do something differently.
How do you deal with frustration or hobby?
Sometimes if I get stuck on something, I'll move on to something else, at least temporarily, and then I'll pick up on it later.
Do you knit your sweaters flat and then seam them together, or do you knit them in the round?
Flat and seam them together, but I do the necklines in the round.
Okay.
I might do another sweater just like the 100 one that looks kind of similar to this with 34 of my next 100 sweaters. Any other questions? Actually, this is a myth. Many people think it's the hands that get a lot of the stress from knitting, but really the muscles that get the most workout are like these up here, because I'm going like that. And the hands, it bothers the least. The thing that puts the most stress on my fingers is using a smartphone.
What's your favorite thing about making sweaters?
I enjoy creating things with my own design and getting to wear them, and it feels like an accomplishment each time.
Have you talked your wife out to do it?
I've tried to get my wife into knitting, but she's not interested. She has a lot of hobbies of her own.
Have you ever been on television?
Many times. Can't even remember all my appearances.
What are your other hobbies other than knitting?
So, I like to go with my wife on nature walks.
Where in the process of planning a trip do you decide like what sweater you're gonna knit for that trip? Like how do you decide that?
So first of all, there are lots of landmarks that I have on my wish list. So many I'll never get them all done in my lifetime. But whenever I get offered a trip somewhere for whatever reason, or I'm planning to take a trip somewhere, the first thing I think of is making a sweater, at least one, maybe more, for landmarks in that place.
Watch TV whilst you're knitting, or do you just focus on that solely?
When I'm home by myself, I watch TV a lot of the time, or watch videos on my iPad, but when I prefer to knit in a group of other people knitting and socialize with those people.
What advice do you have for like young aspiring artists?
To enjoy what you're doing.
Is it ever hard to deal with your celebrity status nowadays?
Usually it's perfectly fine. I feel like I'm the same person I always was. And my friends are they're the same friends they always were with me. But it's like, I don't mind people coming up to me and saying they follow me or that they're fans of mine wanting selfies. But it's like, the hard thing is like when many people want to talk to me at once, that I can't give individual attention to everyone.
What's the most somebody's offered you to try to purchase one of your handmade sweaters?
So this is like the most frequently questioned I get asked all the time, which I've talked about, is people want to ask if I sell them, and I sell the t-shirts. So I steer people into buying the t-shirts. If there's a particular sweater that someone likes, I'll steer them into buying that t-shirt if it's available. If not, I'll say that hopefully it'll be available in the future as one. And there are people who ask me, can you make a sweater of my dog or my business that I run or something? And that I say, regretfully, I can't do.
What's your new spot for traveling?
I don't know yet because sometimes these things come up at the spur of the moment.
Do you ever sell your patterns?
So far I don't. I want to do that one day, but I don't know how to do that single-handedly myself. I really need to find experts to work with on that.
Are your sweaters all freehand now, or do you make
Yeah.
patterns?
All freehand. I haven't used the graph since I did that map of the world one that I showed everyone.
So I know you did sport arenas, but have you ever done like sport teams or logos?
So sports teams, there's an issue. If I sell my stuff, they're trademarked. I've done fields of different sports. Like I did a football one, but it's like, if I did one that's specifically a team, the team's name is trademarked, and I couldn't legally market it if I did that.
Do you have other fiber artists that you look up to or that you
Yes, first of all, my friends who I knit with. Many of them, they're not famous, but they're very talented. And then I see lots of people online I'm really impressed by too. So many, it's hard to name all of them. Thank you.
When you decide to make a sweater, you said you have a lot of yarn. Do you usually have all the colors you need, or do you have to find them?
Sometimes I have the yarn already. Sometimes I buy yarn for it. Sometimes a mixture of both. I guess everyone's asked all the questions. So, if you want, I'll still be around here for a while for those who want to ask questions, but thank you everyone. So,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.